friends, it's Amy. Welcome to Doki Doki Forest. I'm so glad you are here. Now today we are going to be creating in the Halloween journal. And this is a journal I created for hashtag Halloween Journal Challenge, which is hosted by Kia at Kia Creates. I'll have the information down below because there are a lot of creators participating in this challenge, and you can look at the playlist and see what everyone's up to. So it's almost the end of October. We're on the last couple of days here, and I have a lot of prompts to do. So I'm going to see how many I can get through today, how many I can finish today. I'm going to be working on the spooky side today. So this is the spooky side, and if you flip it over, then that's the well, it's not spooky. It is spooky, but the prompts are light and dark. So technically this is the dark side. Therefore, it's a little more spooky, perhaps, probably more spoopy, but maybe a little spooky. And then this is for the light side. Now the prompts are on the inside title page on the light side, but we're going to look at the dark edition here. And I've only done the spooky playlist, and I did a title page too for the other side. So look, I have all of these. Definitely going to do Witch's Brew today, and hopefully Shadowed Silhouettes, and then we'll see if we can do some more from there. Gnarled Branches and Poisoned Fruit, I can combine those into one page. So I'm going to try to get a little creative like that, I think, to get some of these pages done. Hopefully this week, but we'll see. So, that's the wrong side. I gotta flip it. Gotta flip it over here. So spooky playlist was the last pages that I did, the last prompt that I did, I should say. And here we go. So this is what it looks like. Just a magazine page. And we're going to, let's see. So Witch's Brew. Now I have some images I can use to cover up this side of the page. Thinking of using this with the cauldron, and then I have this image as well that has like a couple of really cool little wine goblets there, so I could put that maybe there or something. And then on this side I'm going to do an illustration. I'm going to create a watercolor illustration, so I'm going to create that first and kind of see how big it gets and how much it takes up, how much space it takes up over here. And then I don't know what I'm going to put behind it. I don't know if I'm just going to paint or if I'm going to try to find a pattern to put behind it or maybe some paper. We'll see. So let's get into the illustration part of it and we'll go from there. Okay, so I had already created a Witch's Brew page when I did my previous Halloween journal, and that was for hashtag RTC Season of the Witch. That was hosted by Priscilla over at Release the Craftin', and I had made it like a little coffee shop sort of place. So I didn't want to do that again, and I had also had this idea of a witch, having a brew, like Witch's Brew, like some sort of a beverage, and then I was thinking, well, maybe she had a lot of it, or maybe she just had a really strong Witch's Brew, and she just like fell asleep on her big, comfortable chair, and she has all of her familiars all around her that are also snuggling. So I'm going with that. So she has her Witch's Brew in a little mini cauldron cup, and it's sort of just dangling over the side of the couch there. She's holding on to it, but it's dangling there, and whatever was left in there is spilling onto the floor. And all of her familiars, like I said, they're all kind of pig piling right on top, all sleeping, because if you have a cat or a dog, how a lot of times they like to just sleep right on top of you or as close as they can get. And this time of year especially, that is a good thing. I love when my dog Sophia cuddles up with me at night. I call her my little heater. It gets colder and colder this time of year, and it's so nice having her right there next to me, all snuggled up. Oh, and make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'm going to show you some of the process here as I do these pages. But then at the end, you'll see like the finalized pages and sort of see like little details I may have added or little extras and stuff. So I'm not going to show you 100% of what I do, just sort of a basic idea of how I create the page, and then just some of the details and stuff will be kind of left out until the end. So hopefully you can stick around and see the whole thing. So what do you think? Are there enough animals on there? I've got a bird, a bat, an owl, who's also a bird, of course. I've got a bunny, a sort of dog-wolf creature, a dragon, maybe a cat, and something else that is just sort of a little beastie with some horns. So, oh, you know what? Now I'm like, oh, I should have put a little hamster on top, a little tiny hamster. That would have been cute. Well, you know what? This sort of thing, you could just add more and more and more animals. And at first I was going to do a glue book style. I was going to draw the witch, but then I was going to look for animals in my magazine image collection and cut them out and glue them in and make a whole pig pile. But I just decided to draw them in because I really wanted to have the dragon snuggled up like on his back, just leaning against her legs and just sleeping and stuff. So I just was like, well, I'll just illustrate these ones. And like I said, you can always add more stuff in later. That's what's so fun about doing these pages, is that they never have to be done. You can always add more. So if you think your page is done, then you're looking through your stuff, and of course you find that image that you're like, oh, this would have been perfect on that page. Just go ahead back in and add it. I mean, that happens to me all the time. I will have something and I'm like, oh, I've got a prompt for this. I'm going to put it aside and save it for that prompt. This will be perfect. And then when it comes time for me to do the page, I can't find that image. It literally just happened to me today. I could not find an image of an apple, and I knew I wanted to use it. I knew I had set it aside like literally 2-3 days ago, and I could not find it. So it drove me nuts. I'll find it though. I'll find it when I'm either done with this challenge or working on another prompt or something like that. It'll turn up. So just painting these guys now. If you've been here before, you kind of know my process. If you're new, welcome. And so I like to do my pencil sketch and then ink and then watercolor. Oh, and then usually a little white gel pen on top of that for some details. Sometimes some colored pencil. In this case, I'm just using my basic koi watercolor set, and then I will add a little bit of shimmery metallic watercolors on top, although I feel like you can't really see them when I add them in. I thought they might make the dragon look like, extra shiny, scaly, but didn't quite work out. I decided to give this witch some greenish skin, of course, as a nod to the Wicked Witch of the West. Speaking of which, we have the movie Wicked coming out. Are you guys excited to go and check that out? I am really looking forward to it. I've never seen the play. I don't know the music. I did read the original book like 20 plus years ago, and I did not like the book. But I have heard that the musical is, not exactly like the book. Like, takes some ideas from the book, but really is its own separate thing. So I'm really excited to see the musical. I think when I read the book, I always pronounced the name Elphaba. But now I hear, people say it for real. Elphaba is the name of the Wicked Witch of the West. Or maybe it's just the Witch of the West. Maybe she's not wicked. I don't know. We'll see how that factors in. Okay, so here is our witch all cut out. You can see I added a pumpkin pattern to the couch to make it look hopefully more like a little fabric pattern there. And I added some white gel pen and just a little bit of shimmery watercolor. You can't really see it. So now we are going to build a room for our witch. And I'm thinking we can use this image because it can look like, you know, she was in the kitchen making something. And then we can put her kind of like down there. And then I have this image that has like a cauldron there, some snacks, some mugs of something to drink there. And I have this too. I wasn't going to use this picture. I didn't really want another witch in the picture, but I may use this wall hanging. That could look really cool. So yeah, let's get gluing. So I know for sure I want this kitchen. I love how it has a lot of black on it. I feel like that goes really well with my theme for this page. And I like that it has a little wine bottle on the counter. So I thought, you know, I'm trying not to cover that up as I'm figuring out where to glue things down. And then I'm also just trying to see how I can cover up the bottom of that page. So that way when I glue my image on, my illustration, then the page is like, you know, filled in and hopefully no magazine is showing. The text from the magazine, rather. So I ripped out that tapestry, the wall hanging, putting that in, and I thought it would be cool to include a drink recipe. So I have this recipe for black margaritas with torched limes, which sounded like a really nice Halloween recipe to enjoy, a nice beverage. So I'm going to include that in there. I don't know if I'm ever going to make that recipe, but maybe. I like this cauldron here, and I like the popcorn and the little drinks there too. So I'm just ripping the edges. The ripped edges can just look really nice and to kind of blend in and stuff. So we're going to have a nice big bowl of popcorn here. So you got to have your snacks, you know. This witch, maybe she had a tough day at the office. She's coming home. She's having some popcorn and snacks and a nice drink, you know. And there's Snoopy. He has a cauldron. So I thought, well, you know, maybe he's making some witch's brew as well. And I'm just ripping up some paper and covering up all these lumpy, bumpy edges that I have because it is a shaped magazine. The dragon's tail was covering up the recipe, so I didn't glue that down. There is a nice big cauldron of witch's brew. And I found the words hostess with the mostess. I thought that was perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next prompts. And I'm going to combine a couple of prompts here. So the next spooky prompt is shadowed silhouettes. And I know exactly what I want to do, but I wanted it to be a stormy night. And then I realized that one of the other prompts on the list was Twilight Thunderstorm. So I am combining both of those into these two pages. And this is quite a thunderstorm. Like, look at all that lightning. Like, that is a lot of lightning. And I realized lightning's not as easy to draw as I thought. Like, I can imagine it in my head, but getting it down on the paper was like another matter entirely. So here is our character for this page. We have a young Victor Frankenstein, and he is working away. He has been working in his laboratory on all of his experiments, just waiting for the perfect stormy night to bring his latest creation to life, his latest monster. Now, I haven't read the Frankenstein book since I was in college, and I've only read it one time. And I remember I didn't quite care for the book, but I really want to go and reread that again. That's on my list of things I want to do. I wanted to do that for October, but that didn't happen, so I definitely want to see it. But I did watch a movie the other day that I totally missed called, I think it was just called Victor Frankenstein, and it was from 2015, and it has James McAvoy and Daniel Radcliffe, and it was so good. So watching that definitely influenced me, or I should say inspired me, to create this page. And I wanted him to look gaunt and pale, and like he hasn't been sleeping. You know, I want him to look like a little bit crazy and a little bit just like, you know, he's not really been taking care of himself. Although he does dress pretty snappy, but, you know, he's doing these like bonkers experiments, you know, and he's staying up all hours of the night, and he's really passionate about his projects. And his projects are making these like monstrosities, these like hideous creatures that he's bringing to life or attempting to bring to life. So yeah, that's what's going on with this guy. We're going to give him a limited palette, a limited color choice there. He's got those nice dark circles under his eyes. And yeah, just looking pretty dapper right now. But I'm sure he'll become more and more unhinged. You know, the hair will get crazier, the clothes will get messier, and he'll be sweating profusely, and, you know, the eyes will be popping out. You know, he'll get really weird. But right now, he's still looking okay. I mean, his face isn't looking great, but his clothes are still looking pretty good. His decline into madness, right? He's just going to get more and more obsessive about his projects. Everyone thinks he is crazy, and he thinks he's a genius. And they always say, there's a fine line between crazy and genius. So how does silhouette figure in with these pages? Because, you know, the prompt is Twilight Thunderstorm and shadowed silhouettes. Well, here we go. I thought I could create these silhouettes that are sort of, some of them are more creature-ish and monsterish. And then like that first one that's kind of hunched over, that's Igor, who was Victor Frankenstein's assistant. And then, of course, there's the monster with the squarish head and like the bolts, the neck bolts. And I'm not going to give these characters a lot of detail. It's like just enough to kind of see like this thing is just some sort of a strange bear monster thing, because he's just experimenting, bringing like all kinds of things to life. And this one is like the bride of Frankenstein. You can see that hair. But I'm not going to give them faces or anything like that, because these are just silhouettes. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next two prompts I'm going to combine, and that's Gnarled Branches, which I'm making with some paper here, as well as Poisoned Fruit. So Gnarled Branches and Poisoned Fruit are these pages. Now you might be thinking, well, what the heck happened with that Frankenstein page? Well, I'm going to show you at the end. I'll show you how it all came together. But for now, we've got some images here. The image on the right I really liked, because it's some people walking through this forest and they're getting tangled up in the vines of the flower. But I thought they could also be getting tangled up in vines and branches and just kind of this weird forest. And there is Our Lady with her gnarled branches. And then we also have another tree on the left there that has some gnarled hand branches. I'm going to put an eye in this flower just to make it extra weird, like this forest is watching you. And then I just took some packaging that came in a box. You know, something got delivered from the store and it was wrapped in that paper. So I just thought I'd twist it into some branches. We have this girl here who looks kind of intense and, you know, maybe a little mysterious, maybe a little bit creepy even, who's holding out some fruit. She's offering you some of this fruit, which is, of course, poisoned fruit. But you may not know that. Maybe you didn't notice as you were walking through the forest that you were being watched by all of these eyes and living trees. I mean, trees are always living, but these ones actually have like faces and they look like people. And, you know, maybe they were people who ate the fruit and then they became these twisted trees. All right, so let's get in here. Let's see how these pages turned out at the end. Thank you for being patient and waiting. This is the wrong side. I keep doing that. We got to flip it around. Here we go. Okay, so this was our first page here that we created. And this was the Witch's Brew page, a 2-page layout. And as I was saying, this tail, I originally had it glued, and then I realized you can't see that recipe, which there it is. If you would like to make that, you can take a little screenshot. So instead, I lifted this back up before it fully dried, and I'm just going to leave it like that. So you can, it still closes fine and opens and looks a little funky when it's like that, but you know, then that way I'm not covering up the recipe. Got a big old batch of Witch's Brew back there in the kitchen. Hostess with the mostess, and I just outlined that with some black ink because I didn't want it to just be white. Here's the witch, of course, with all of her familiars. And over on this page, I added this little plate here with a cat, and I added a bird. I don't think I had that crow in there before, right? So just a couple of things to finish off the edges where I needed to. And that's pretty much it for those prompts. Now next we have our Frankenstein page, which you haven't seen in a while. And remember, the prompts are Shadowed Silhouettes and Twilight Thunderstorm. So here we go. So we have our thunderstorm on a dark night. And here's Victor Frankenstein up in his lab, bringing his creatures to life. And I found these words, his beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy. And I thought, well, that's perfect, because he's thinking like his creations are beautiful. And like, look what he's done. And then I just layered the silhouettes here. And yeah, so wait a minute, there's a little piece here. That piece isn't supposed to be there. But yeah, so there we go. I know I covered up most of the thunderstorm back here, but I think you can still get an idea of the lightning. I know it looks a little bit crazy back there. It's a crazy night with a crazy guy. Okay, and then our last pages here. This was Gnarled Branches and Poisoned Fruit. So we have our tree over here with the branches extending from her arm and traveling over. We have this fruit that's growing these apples, and I just decided to add an eyeball to the apples, like, so it's super weird, like they're watching you, and like clearly this is not good fruit to eat. And here is this girl offering you this weird fruit, and of course this is the evil queen from Snow White, and this is her witch disguise, of course. And she is super excited that poison apples are like a thing and catching on. And, you know, there's a whole forest of them. She's like psyched about that. And then I found these words, the apple of your eye. And I just thought that worked perfect because we have apples and eyes on these pages. So kind of weird. And I was using tacky glue to glue down these branches. It seems to have worked pretty well. It's funny, I could hear Harmony from Harmony's Creations. I felt like I could hear her saying, like, use your glue gun. And I didn't use the glue gun. I was using tacky glue. But I think you could use a glue gun, and that would work out probably better, like maybe easier. So that's it. Those are the pages for today. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I hope I can do some more before Halloween is over. We'll see. We'll see what I can get done, but thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you again soon.